We are live. This is the Shillan and Duffy recap show on the Sherdog Radio Network. I am your host. My name is Keith Shillan. Joining me as always with his little bit of I don't know if this is like a Nostradamus thing. He's got his Houston Astros championship hat on, who could possibly win the World Series tonight. He, of course, is the great Ben Duffy.
Well, I'm not Nostradamus, not prognosticating anything. This is my 2019 AL Champs hat, just wearing it for good luck. But hey, we get some crossover because Rhode Island's finest, Houston shortstop Jeremy Pena, first rookie shortstop to win a Gold Glove, has set a couple of rookie records in the playoffs this year. Something we can agree on. I assume you're kinder to Southern New England other sports.
Yeah, he went to my dad's high school. He went to classical high school, the same high school that my dad went to. So, I guess best shortstop since my dad. Anyway, I'm sure Ben will be looking over to, I don't know what's it on, ABC.
It's still nothing to nothing. Like I'm uncomfortable in the extreme here, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
Oh,
we're not talking about some fights.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the fights. We're recapping UFC Vegas 64, Rodriguez versus Lemos, two Brazilian fighters in the main event, two female fighters. We have the chat popping. Thank you to all the people in the chat. A lot of the usuals in there. We just ask if you're in the chat, be respectful, keep talking. If you're watching and you're not in the chat, like, shame on you. Get in there. Like, you gotta do your Grant Dawson when you're in it. You gotta make yourself known. Like, don't lose the moment. So let's get right into it.
We know you're there, Tiffany Shriver.
Yeah, Tiffany, still talking. In the main event, Marina Rodriguez took on Amanda Lemos. Amanda Lemos won by third round TKO, a standing TKO, which we don't get often. Let's work backwards. Let's start with the knockout and then kind of get into what happened before that. First thing right off the bat, I think the first thing I saw in the chat was, and I'll throw this out to the chat, ask you guys, good stoppage, bad stoppage. Ben, it was a little early. Are you saying bad stoppage or are you saying it's okay?
I'm going to quote Mel, who, welcome back, by the way. I think last week was Mel's first week here. Mel in the chat a few minutes ago called it a girl stoppage. I'm on board with that. Generally speaking, at the UFC level, especially at this is a title eliminator level, like these are the stakes, you don't get that kind of standing stoppage unless what's going on is absolutely horrifying. If it's like Cain Velasquez, Ben Rothwell type thing, where the guy is dead and literally just the angle of his legs and the fence are holding him up.
Yeah.
But no, this kind of harks back to, I think the first fighter I heard say it was Aspen Ladd when she got finished by Jermaine Nuerdanbieke, and she said, a men's fight wouldn't have been stopped off that same knockdown. I feel a little bit that way about this one. Maybe I'm just grouchy because I picked Rodriguez to win, but no, I think this is a little on the early side.
That's one thing about you. You stay attached to your picks a little bit more than I do. I don't care if I get them wrong. If I get them wrong, I'm not telling people to bet. I'm not telling people to bet. So that's on you guys if you follow my bets. And I was there live. I'll show my age. I was there live at Mohegan Sun when Dave Monet got freaking absolutely murdered by Phil Baroni with a standing TKO. Where Phil Baroni's punches was keeping Dave Monet up. That would be the extreme. I'll say this. Nolan King from MMA Junkies, he's one of my closest friends in the industry. He's fantastic. If you don't follow him, shame on you guys. He's as knowledgeable as it comes to the sport. He's great at announcing news, and he's also just a fantastic dude. He said something once when I was on the show, and I've always remembered this. He talked about a pendulum, and I know people have heard me say this before, and I always want to give him credit because I've stole it, or like a target where the bullseye is the absolute perfect. To me, this one got on the board. If you stop it, I'm okay with it. If you don't stop it, I'm okay with it. I feel like if you have a pendulum of, okay, this is a late stoppage, this is I felt like it was just on the very edge of like, I'm okay with the stoppage. Who I actually feel bad for, the winner and loser in that, as far as the stoppage, I actually think Marina Rodriguez is the winner in that situation because, one, she doesn't take more damage. Two, she kind of has an excuse like, yeah, I was hurt, but I wasn't out. I could have came back. This is what we do. We've seen other fights. We saw Neil Magny get rocked the fight before, right before that. In about 2 minutes later, he's getting a submission victory. She kind of has that. The loser in this situation is to me is Amanda Lemos, because say what you want, Marina Rodriguez, she was frozen. She was in that where her body is shutting down, her mind, and I've sparred before. I've seen it happen to people. It's happened to me. Like, you get rocked, and your mind is saying like you're fine, but your body's not reacting. That's what's going on. And honestly, I think it was one punch too early. I think the next punch was putting her out. So I feel like Lemos doesn't have this beautiful highlight reel knockout for propping up her next fight of seeing Marina Rodriguez, one of the best women in the division, going down.
And I mean, Boss is kind of mocking us here, but we're going to talk about next matchups for these women in just a few minutes here. And keep in mind that Rodriguez came in on a 5-fight winning streak. If she won by any, like, even if it was something controversial, she's probably getting a title shot next. This is only Lemos' second win in a row. 2 fights ago, she lost really badly to Andrade. She needed to do something a little more sensational to make an undeniable case for herself for a title shot. So for there to be even any question, like any light creeping under the door, is not the best thing for her. Like, obviously, it's not a loss as in, like, it's as bad as losing the fights, but she missed a chance to make as emphatic a statement as she could. In your...
I want to say this. I want to be very clear. I'm not saying she's a loser. I mean, I'm saying, like, when it comes to the stoppage, the referee jumping in stole the moment from Lemos. Like, he stole Lemos getting a walk-off knockout. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. He stole Lemos standing over a dead opponent. Yeah.
That's absolutely what I'm saying. Like, she was going to put her out 1 or 2 punches later, especially with her power.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I've got nice things to say about both fighters in my notes, but believe me, that's coming up.
Up to that point, it was kind of a ho-hum fight, little boring. Both girls, I hate this. I know I say it, just it's not. I'm not trying to be insulting when I call women girls. Both women were a little tentative, given. I'm not saying scared, but giving too much respect to their opponent, and obviously you see what Lemos can do, and that makes a lot of sense. Not much to kind of take off the first round, but I think the fact that Rodriguez clearly lost the second round, it forced her to kind of up her output, which set up the knockout for Lemos.
Yeah. The second round, obviously, that was a big round for Lemos. She had, I think, 3.5 or 4 minutes of top control. I will say this. Marina Rodriguez, for someone who came from a kickboxing, Muay Thai background, she's got this Stephen Thompson thing where she could just survive on the ground against some of the best ground fighters and some of the most, like, physically terrifying ground fighters in the division. And it takes someone really, like, next level special to beat her. Like, she was fine against Mackenzie Dern, like, for long stretches on the ground. Lemos had her in a face crank that had me tapping, like, the side of my desk, like, oh God, just tap, tap, tap. Just great survivability down there. And it gives me hope, because I don't think Marina Rodriguez is done as a title contender. We're going to talk about next matchups in a minute, but it gives me hope because of that circle of 5 women that have been passing the belt back and forth like a hot potato. She still matches up well against some of them, but I mean, she's not the star of the show here. It's Lemos, because she was probably on her way to victory anyway. There is something about her. She is as good a combination in the UFC that you can find right now of swinging super hard on everything without losing your basic mechanics and fundamentals. Like,
well, she's crazy fast. She's crazy fast.
Crazy fast.
She's a great athlete. She's explosive, and she really generates the power. The way she springs off her feet. She springs off her feet the way she can. She explodes into her punches. Out of all the things, I love the foot sweep she hit Marina Rodriguez in the second round when they were in the clinch. That was beautiful. The very fact that she can be a threat there, you know, because of her judo background. And it's also something you don't see a lot, the clinch and then the foot sweep. It really is a judo move. That was really good. top control that she had in the second round. I had it 1-1 heading into the third round, but it was one of those ones where, like, the momentum was all on one side. It was pretty obvious where this fight was going to go.
Yeah, I'm completely with you there, which is why, I mean, I'm a little bit grouchy about the stoppage, but kind of as we mentioned, it's as much for Lemos' sake as Rodriguez's, because, yeah, even though I got the pick wrong, like, I saw the fight wrong. Like, I could see the way that was going. Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, I was surprised because of the way the Lemos is built and the way Rodriguez is long and lengthy. I thought she was going to have a size advantage, and it was pretty evident. She really did. Like, that was the one reason why I was kind of leaning Rodriguez. I don't think it was just because probably because of who Rodriguez has fought, she looked so hulking at times. Going against like a Carlos Esparza or something like that, she looks so big. Or even like when she goes against like Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie Dern, she's a thick one, but she's shorter. Yeah. Now when she went against Lemos, not having that huge size advantage, it was pretty evident to me. That was really surprising.
Agreed. I assumed she would have a reach advantage, and she didn't, because I thought she'd get the better of the striking, because as solid as Lemos's punch mechanics are, her footwork isn't always quite as nifty. Like, when she gets aggressive, she'll start just charging in straight lines at people, not cut off the cage. But the reach advantage that I expected Rodriguez to have kind of evaporated, and I think that played into it as well. But mostly it was just once she tasted the power, it changed her whole game plan. It was like that old Mike Tyson adage, like to a T. Everybody's got a game plan so they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah, I think she wanted to really slow down the pace, have an outside kickboxing match. I think she would have been satisfied with like kicking the legs, teep kicks, kind of trying to stay out of the range, circling, L-step in, maybe a little bit of clinching. But I think her own corner kind of, got on her saying, hey, press the action. You just lost that round. And that just fed right into Lemos is one who wants to counter punch anyways. She's really good with just shoulder rolling off your shot and responding with a faster shot, setting her feet, just really look good. Here's the issue. Now, we talked about on the previous show, and the narrative of this whole thing was Rodriguez wins, she's got a title shot. Daniel Cormier said it probably 20 times. They talked about she's going to be in New York City next week, being cage side for her moment, maybe bring her in. Like, everything was set up for that. Now you got Lemos. She's on a 2-fight winning streak, but she lost to Jessica Andrade recently.
Mm-hmm.
The only issue with that is Jessica Andrade is fighting at 125.
She is.
Which I don't know why she is. She's probably next for title shot if he fights at 115. And it's an easier road to a title. Unless it simply comes down to the fact that it's simply the weight cut, it's too tough for her, or she really wants to be one of these Donald Cerrone types who doesn't have a weight class, which really probably more likely the case.
Yeah.
So that said, we'll say Carlos Esparza would just say, I'm not saying that's my prediction, but just so there's no automatic rematch for the champion, anything like that.
Yeah.
Say Carlos Esparza wins. You're the UFC. Are you calling Lemos? You calling Andrade, who's now scheduled against Lauren Murphy? Obviously, how that plays out. Even though a loss to Lauren Murphy at 125 is a loss at 125, it still doesn't look good. You're coming off the loss, never, even if it's out of the weight class. So what are you doing?
I thought it over, and I kind of like Lemos to get the next title shot no matter what. I have to imagine that part of Andrade's move up is just that she's decided that she doesn't like making the cut anymore.
Yeah, and she's getting older. I mean, she's not a young woman.
She's not young, and while she's short, she is, absolutely built like a tank. Yeah, I still think you go with Lemos versus the winner of Zhang versus Esparza, assuming that there's nothing that requires an immediate rematch. And for the record, unless that ends controversially, I don't want there to be an immediate rematch anyway. If Zhang wins, great. Zhang's your champ. Let Esparza go win another fight or two. Like, I unless it ends in a weird controversial thing. There's just no reason.
I was just trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to pick a person,
Yeah.
by saying a person's name and not that Carla Esparza hasn't been a champion long enough where she gets an automatic rematch or anything like that. Okay, let me ask you this question. I didn't answer you. I'm with you.
Okay.
She just won the main event. She's exciting. She's well-rounded. Yeah, there is the purist in me wants to go with Jessica Andrade, but Lemos is also up there in age. She doesn't have a lot of time. And it's like it's a new face. Even though she's like not young, but it's a new face. It brings a little bit more excitement to kind of have someone new. As you talked about, we've had the same 5 people since the existence of this. It's funny when like Weili Zhang almost feels kind of new. And she's going for her, she's fought what is it that one? This is her 4th title fight. Fifth title fight. Let me ask you this, and we'll do because we don't have that much to talk about after this. There's a couple other things, but not the deepest card. Next week will be much different. Say Carlos Esparza wins. Who's the favorite, Carlos Esparza or Amanda Lemos? Betting favorite.
Maybe Lemos. I for some reason I think there's not a whole lot of faith in Esparza. I'm guilty. I underrated Esparza. I ignored her whole kind of 2-year-long comeback trail. I would have bet good money 3 years ago that she would never be UFC champ again, or even fight for a championship. I figured she'd just be just another top 10 woman for a couple more years, and in her late 30s would kind of drop off. Yeah, it's easy to underestimate her. She's tiny. She's as small as Jessica Andrade without that Hulk-like physique to make you kind of respect her by the eyeball test.
She doesn't talk herself up either. They kind of like, those one fighters who can talk themselves into a little bit more buzz around her. She doesn't have that going. I'll do this. We haven't taped UFC 281 preview. I'm sure that's going to be another really long one.
It'll be an interesting one. Yeah.
I'm going to do something, Ben, is this okay, that I never do? Can you tell me what the odds are for Esparza versus Weili? I'm assuming
absolutely.
I'm assuming, just guessing, Weili's the favorite, but I don't know. I don't know if she's the favorite. I just want to prove your point. I want to prove.
If I were to tell you that one woman is floating around minus 400 right now, would you be able to guess which one it is?
Shit, yeah, Weili. Like that. That right there.
Best you can get Weili at a reputable site available in North America is like minus 325. Yeah. But there are some that have her up at like minus 375, minus 440. Yeah. Like, yeah.
I kind of had a feeling she was going to be. I didn't expect that big. I was thinking maybe 2-1. The reason why I was saying that is I wanted to prove your point. How Carlos Esparza just beat, again, not the most pleasing fight, not the most impressive, controversial, her win over Rose Namajunas, but she just beat Rose Namajunas, who is coming off 2 victories over Weili Zhang. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I know, and guys, no one come in the chat at me and be like, hey, MMA math doesn't work. Yeah, I've been an MMA fan longer than 10 minutes. I understand that. It's just I just want to prove the point. So yeah, I think Lemos, even if Carlos Esparza beats Weili Zhang, I think Lemos would be the favorite. Let's flip that. How about Weili versus Lemos? Who's the favorite of that one? And just by the chat, while you're thinking about it, just by the chat, it seems like everybody's way more excited for that fight.
If Weili plunks Esparza or just, dominates her for 5 rounds and Esparza can never get her down, I think Weili comes in as the favorite, but it's not much of one. Like, it's less than minus 200.
Yeah.
Like, she comes in at like minus 180, Lemos like plus 145 or something.
Yeah, I think it might even be close to that, negative 130 or something like that. Bass is putting negative 125. Yeah, I pretty close to a pick 'em.
Dude, it wouldn't take much to start thinking of Weili Zhang as invincible again, because at her best, she is just so destructive.
At her best, she does what she did to Joanna Jędrzejczyk in the last fight. She looks like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just does what she did to Jessica Andrade. Or just plunks her in like a minute and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Just seeing by the chat, everyone's super excited for it seemed like Whaley and Lemos. Let me ask you this question. Nah, I don't think this is even possible. I don't think she get cleared. Being that she fought tonight to weigh in 6 days from now and fight 7 days from now, I don't think. I know we've had Chimaev do this crazy turnaround on this, and who has who's the Mexican woman that we love? She has the record. I think she has the record.
I know the one.
She fought 2 weekends in a row.
Lupi Godinez.
Lupi Godinez. Yeah, she fought 2 weekends in a row, I think it was. I don't think this would even get cleared. But
I don't either.
Hypothetically,
New York is super. New York's the last place you want to try to do that.
Yeah, New York was the last state. Yeah. But hypothetically, just for fun. It was a recap show. We're having fun. Say she did get cleared. Say she does weigh in. I'm going to throw this in the chat. Would you rather see Carlos Esparza versus... Actually, I'll put all three and I'll throw in the chat and we'll throw up on what people say. Which fight would you rather have? There's 3 options. The one that we currently have, Esparza versus Weili Zhang, Esparza versus Lemos, Esparza versus... Weili versus Lemos. So you have 3 options. So everyone throw in the chat. Tell me which fight a week from now you want to see most. Ben, I'll ask you. Which one would you rather?
I mean, Lemos versus Zhang is the most appealing fight of the 3, but the short turnaround, I mean, if and when we see that fight, I don't want there to be any question. I don't want there to be any excuses. Obviously, Amanda Lemos is somebody that has a substantial weight cut, considering that she didn't look especially tiny at 135.
And we didn't even talk about that. How she came in late during the week because of traveling. We kind of blew that off.
Well, it's because all 3 people that were held up in travel won by finish.
Yeah, I know. Maybe that's the thing. Get away from who was it? It was Lemos. It was
Lemos. It was Viana. It was Viana, and it was Vidal.
Yeah. All 3 of them. Okay. I'm going to keep it the same fight that we have scheduled right now, and it's kind of the same reason. I want a full camp from both of them.
Yeah.
But of the 3, I'm with most of the chat. Lemos versus Weili is the one that people seem they want to see the most. But it's weird. These people who kind of get shit on a little bit when they're the champion, I almost have like a respect for them. I almost cheer for them a little bit. You know?
Yeah.
And, I try not to cheer for people. I mean, I cheer for whoever I picked. But
especially if it is through no fault of their own.
Exactly. The bad fight for Esparza, and she got the decision, and I know the stupid saying you got to beat the champ and all that nonsense. She didn't write her name down as the winner. It's like the people hating on Sean O'Malley right now. Like, yeah, he give you other reasons to hate on him. Him getting a controversial win over Petrion, is not the reason to hate on him.
And that same night, Aljamain Sterling, all he can do is go out and beat the person in front of him.
Exactly. And all right, so you said Rodriguez probably still not that far away, being that you have Joanna Jędrzejczyk is retired. I actually believe that might be one that we don't see her again. Rose Namajunas, you can really never count on. She kind of always seems like she's got one foot out the door. It seems that way for years now. Mm-hmm. Jessica Andrade is fighting in a different weight class. Obviously, Esparza, Weili Zhang, one of them will be coming off a loss after Saturday. She's not that far. The perfect example is Lemos. We're talking about her getting a title shot 2 fights ago. She lost. So that said, what are you doing with Rodriguez? Who would you like to match up against?
I think there's 2 routes you can go. If Esparza wins next Saturday, you can make Rodriguez versus Zhang, and I'm happy with that. Or if Zhang wins, I don't want to see Esparza and Rodriguez rematch for anything less than the title. So I say give her Emily Ducote when she beats Angela Hill in a couple weeks.
Oh, that's so funny.
Ducote is coming in, got a huge head of steam. She's obviously a different fighter than she was at 125 in Bellator. She has a fast track into the title picture. Don't waste it. Give her a victory over a top 5, top 6 opponent and get her through that bubble. So one of those 2 works for me.
That's actually the exact fight I said. I want to get Rodriguez a win, kind of let her take on a new face or somebody. I put down the Angela Hill / Emily Ducote winner. Angela Hill can
I'm as big an Angela Hill stand as you're going to find, but Ducote's probably going to win that fight.
Yeah, and if she doesn't, Angela Hill can always get somebody over. Like, she's fun, she's entertaining. She works the mic as good as anybody. And
dude, Angela Hill has lost like 6 of her last 9 fights, and on Tapology, where it's just fan voted, she's still like in the top 10. She's like number 11 right now.
Yeah,
at Strawweight. Yeah, like I'm just saying that's her power to get people over.
Yeah.
That is how she's perceived.
Yeah, Tapology has a really good resources for some things. You want to look up who fought this one and who fought that one. I'd stay away from the rankings a little bit, considering I had to message someone before I worked for Sherdog. I had to message someone who worked for Tapology multiple times and be like, hey, you guys have Kevin Randleman ranked. Kevin Randleman's been dead for 3 years. Stuff like that. Like I found like 10 people ranked in the top 100. Anyways, they go by algorithms. If someone fights out of a weight class, they instantly drop down. Like if Valentina Shevchenko fights Amanda Nunes next for 135, Valentina will go from the top 125 pounder to like 18th. It makes no sense. Yeah. Anyways, all right. Another fight that you could have argued would have been another good main event. Neil Magny took on Danny Rodriguez. Neil Magny winning by 3rd round submission. Neil Magny is the all-time wins record for welterweights, passing the great George St. Pierre. Ben, who's a better fighter, Neil Magny or George St. Pierre?
Statistically and numerically, it's clearly Neil Magny.
Hey, dude, stats don't lie. Stats don't lie. That's what they say, right? That's what they say, right?
It couldn't happen to a better dude. Just
absolutely.
Just a stone cold professional. And I said this on the preview, a guy and of course he got a finish tonight, but for a guy who's not a finish machine, consistently exciting fighter.
Oh, he's fantastic. I love everything about him.
He's fantastic. And I knew I was wrong about this fight at the end of the first round, because I picked Rodriguez, even though I knew the mistake of taking a short turnaround fighter against the cardio king of MMA. But I said, Rodriguez will have 2 rounds in the bag and he'll have to hold on. But he lost the first round because he didn't turn it on till late in the round. Like, he won the last minute and a half, 2 minutes of the round. He was starting to hit Magny hard, but he had already pissed away too much of the round. I gave the first round to Magny, and from there, even though Rodriguez won the second round and hurt Magny a few times, it was Magny's fight. I knew he was going to win the 3rd round. Didn't expect him to get the finish, but he's a killer, man. He's not just been the model of consistency, every bit as much as your Jim Miller, Donald Cerrone, Joe Lozon type, but a guy who has continued to improve his skills over the course of his career. The things he hangs his hat on now are just different and better than what he did 8 years ago. I mean, he's always had great cardio. He's always been underratedly good offensive wrestler for a guy who just looks tall and skinny. He was one of the original skinny man wrestlers. Yeah, but he's a much better grappler. He's a much better boxer. He's much better boxer defensively, much more defensively sound. For a guy who looks tall and skinny, he's not easy to bully. And dude, for him to just hoist Danny Rodriguez, a guy that probably outweighed him at 15 pounds in the cage, for a belly to back suplex in the 3rd round. Just what man stuff right there.
I love Neil Magny.
Dude, how can you not love Neil Magny?
I know. If you don't like Neil Magny, then you just stop watching MMA. I'll say this about Danny Rodriguez, because Bass asked this: did we see the peak or the ceiling of Danny Rodriguez? I'll say this: he looked good. Like, he had a good jab. He was winning again with a single strike, busting up Neil Magny, hurting him, rocked him a couple times. So I don't know if we've seen the ceiling. Like, I still feel pretty high on him. I feel like this fight tells more of a story of Neil Magny, and you can kind of see it through the round. And I'll say this about Neil Magny. Yeah, I can say something really stupid and say he doesn't have the physical tools. Well, the guy's like 6'12". 6'3". Guy's huge. like Neil Magny can slam dunk. Like, he can just raise his arm when he's dunking.
He could dunk over Paul Craig. Like, there's a pickup game at the Apex. He's dunking on Paul Craig.
Yeah. So obviously he has the physical tools. That's there. But like, there is decline in some things, but what there isn't a decline on is mental fortitude. That's what he has, and he is the epitome. He is the spokesperson for that. Some people don't believe in that stuff. He's the guy that he'll make you believe. He's that, like, yeah. I mean, I watch him. He doesn't look that good. There's a lot of things. Like when I think about Neil Magny, like, what is he really good at? I'm like, yeah, he's an underrated grappler, but he's not George St. Pierre taking people down. He's a good striker, but he's not Stephen Thompson. I'm like, oh, you know what he is? Freaking tough. Just he's the master of toughness, of just and game planning and just giving himself every opportunity. Now, the first round, I felt like he was doing so much right. He was working distance and so well, and I really want to break down each round because it was like 3 different Neil Magnies. First round, he's working from distance, he's jabbing, he's teep kicking, he's staying in his range. Every time Rodriguez was 8, and Rodriguez really struggled early on to get by the jab. Yep. As soon as he got into where now you're in the boxing range, Magny was initiating, he was grabbing him, just changing up to the point where now Rodriguez doesn't want to be in a clinch battle with Magny, especially with the knees and all that. So now Rodriguez is pulling himself out of that, back out of range. So Magny's back in that first range where he wanted to be. Okay. Second round is where I'm a little concerned about Magny because as crazy as this was, his output was low for Neil Magny, as crazy as that is. But he started backing straight up. He was getting hurt. He got buckled a couple down. His speed is down. Like, he's not as a fast twitch guy. He's not the male Amanda Lemos where he's super fast. He's backing straight up. It looks like Rodriguez is taking over. The very beginning of the third round, a lot like the second round, where he's hurt. And then the third, Neil Magny showed up. And it's that when my body is failing me, when my skills are overmatched, this is when I just dig way deeper. I'm going to go to the super deep place. He hits this beautiful slide by, gets the position, gets a takedown. He stands up. Everything was going well. But when Daniel Rodriguez stood up and Neil Magny picked him up and Matt returned him straight, all the way straight to his face, I said, it's all over. Magny won. I didn't expect he was going to get a Darce choke, but he physically broke. Actually, I say physically. He mentally broke Daniel Rodriguez. Mm-hmm. He obviously got caught in a Darce choke, but I also think he wanted out too. I think when the Darce choke came in, I don't think Daniel Rodriguez was saying oh my God, the Darce choke is in. I think it was a little bit of okay, here's my chance. So that's what I thought.
I hesitate to call Neil Magny an overachiever because when you call an MMA fighter an overachiever, you're usually talking about somebody with modest physical tools that makes the best of them. You talk about a Roxanne Modafferi or hell, my guy Alex Morono. Magny is an overachiever. Just he has a certain set, he has a good set of physical skills. He has a physique that creates matchup problems. He's not a slow guy. He's coordinated. He's strong, and he's taken what he does have and maximized it. And he's turned himself from coming out of tough. He looked like he was probably going to be an 8 or 10 fight UFC veteran, and turned into a 30 fight UFC veteran and a perennial fringe contender. Overachiever. And
absolutely.
I mean that as a full compliment. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Neil Magny. He did something that only Neil Magny would do. Neil Magny was calling out Chimaev before that was popular. He called out Gilbert Burns tonight. Not many people are calling out Gilbert Burns. And at first I go, oh my God, Neil, what are you doing? Gilbert Burns? He's so fast. He hits so hard. He has such a great grappling game. And then I go, yeah, but Neil Magny would be like a legit foot taller than him. Yep. I think he made the job easy for me. Give me Neil Magny versus Gilbert Burns in a fight night main event.
I don't hate the fight, and because he called for it, if Burns is down, the UFC is probably going to make it, and if they do, that's great. Because
Burns is down because Burns has the same Magny mentality.
Burns is down. Burns, I think he is a combination of all the things that are poison to Magny. Because the people who've traditionally beaten Magny are people who are much better grapplers or people who have the right combination of speed and power that they're just able to find his chin. Santiago, Ponzinibbio, Lorenz Larkin types. So I think that's a rough matchup for Magny, but that's appropriate since Magny would be the one fighting up in the rankings and Gilbert fighting down. That should be that kind of combination of risk and reward. I think my problem is that somewhere in the back of my mind, I still think that Burns, even though he's lost like 2 of his last 3 or 2 of his last 4, is closer to the title picture. And I think Magny might already have kind of hit his high watermark there. I want to see Magny against someone who's either in his same kind of area, like in just a couple weeks, Kevin Holland and Stephen Thompson are fighting.
Yeah, that's what
I would love to see Magny versus Holland.
Yeah, Magny and Thompson has never fought each other, right?
Haven't they though? Did Magny and Stephen Thompson never fight?
I don't know. I don't remember.
No, I guess they never
pretty
did.
Crazy
so,
that they.
So either of those. Because Magny and Thompson are almost in the same place. Like Thompson went higher before he crested, but he's also older and more on his obvious back end.
I feel like talk about, they're in the same place in their career, but talk about like complete opposites. Where Stephen Thompson, he just wows you with the things he can do.
Yep.
And Neil Magny's grab the, his lunchbox and go to work. Which. I'm not saying that Stephen Thompson's personality isn't like that, because I mean, this is a guy who literally, was fighting for world champions and picking the kids up from elementary school to go to the, Kempo karate class. So,
driving the church bus around.
Yeah, he's as humble of a guy as they come. I just mean like Stephen Thompson's a highlight reel, and you don't get that with Magny. Magny's Magny's highlight reel is like landing a teep kick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, otherwise it's highlight reel. Like it's all stuff out of context because you see him like sitting on Hector Lombard and punching him 60 times in the head, and you don't understand what it took to get him to that point.
That's right. Yeah.
It's like listening to Beethoven's Ode to Joy without listening to the whole like Ninth Symphony before it. Like you're just da, 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 da. Yeah, like you don't know all the tribulation you went through to get there. Like with Neil Magny, it's about the journey.
Look at Ben being so cultured, getting Beethoven into our show. So my wife is the music teacher. I should be able to get that one in, but Ben, I mean, let's be honest. Ben does have he is the musician of the two of us. He's got the.
I definitely know Beethoven though.
Danny Rodriguez. I came up with Brandy Brown.
I like that. Brandy Brown is on the come up.
Kind of like the guy who looks like Neil Magny, and I don't mean that because they're both black. I mean both extremely tall, long.
Yeah, they look similar. Yeah. Like I like that just fine. Otherwise, I mean, we have a little mosh pit coming up in 2 weeks where we have Jack Della Maddalena and Danny Roberts and Muslim Salikov and Andre Fialho. Just give me one uninjured loser out of that, and that'd be fine too.
Rodriguez Fialho would be pretty fun throwing down. Like they both like to play in that same range.
Yeah, it'd be a slugfest. Danny Roberts would also be a slugfest, even though I really favor Rodriguez in that. I don't think Della Maddalena loses that, but that's a great bounce back fight for him if that's where he loses his first UFC fight. Yeah, like one of those four would probably make a great fight.
There you have it. Let's move on. This next fight, excuse me. This next fight, the fight will be really quick. I don't know if we're talking about this. Will be really quick.
I think it's going to take a minute.
Yeah. So Derek Minner took on Shillan Nuerdanbieke. Won by first round TKO. Type of a freak injury where Derek Minner throws a kick, looks like it bounced off the hip or almost the groin area a little bit. Pulls his back. He instantly kind of cries out in pain. Throws another kick that he falls to the ground. Nuerdanbieke finishes it up. The referee gave Minner every chance to get up. I was like, all right, he's not fighting back. He's just covering up. Stop it. So that's it. That's the only thing. I mean, is there anything you want to say about the actual action?
No, that's about it. I mean, I put up Boss's comment. He thought Derek Minner might have been tapping
He might have.
during that. It's entirely possible. It's hard to tell because he had his guard up. He's taking elbows on the guard. I mean, for what it's worth, he took 30 elbows to the head. They were all off the guard. I mean, still, if you take 30 elbows anywhere and you're not moving, the fight's probably over. But yeah, He might have been tapping underneath there somewhere.
Yeah, he's covered up like someone get mugged. That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
Usually a fight that ends in a freak injury that's not a real main event type fight, not guys in the rankings, that's probably where it normally would end. I don't think this will be the last we'll hear of this fight. And I wasn't even going to address this because I don't know that much about the story, but Twitter is going crazy over controversy. Ben, you are better with the Twitter than I am.
Well,
set us up for the controversy.
First person I saw mention this was Aaron Bronstetter, who, I mean, if you don't follow him on Twitter, what the hell are you even doing? Yeah. Like, he's okay for a Canadian.
My favorite Canadian. He's my favorite Canadian.
That must mean that Mrs. Shillan is now a naturalized citizen of the U.S. Otherwise, Keith, there'd be a shoe flying in from off camera, like getting Keith right in the head. He tweeted out and pointed out that the odds for this fight went through the roof within about an hour before they stepped in the cage. So we're talking about after the event has already started, like after weigh-ins,
which never happens.
No, like after official weigh-ins, after ceremonial weigh-ins, after most of the undercard. We're talking 60 to 90 minutes before their fight. The odds go from Shillan minus 230 or so to Shillan minus 370 or so. For that to happen in the middle of the event with there's no good reason that could happen. The only
it wasn't like it was announced. Someone broke news. Someone big broke news. Ben tweeted out he just was told that Minner's knee keeps popping. Like one of these TJ Dillashaw, someone got this big news.
But I mean, there's only a couple of ways this could happen. Word leaked out that Minner was nursing an active injury, and either
serious
injury. So either the sports books got word of it and adjusted the lines in advance, or bettors got a line on it first, started betting Shillan through the roof, and they adjusted the lines to adjust for that. But it's a bad look, and
there's other options, but.
Yeah, I mean, there are other options. If there are any you want to bring up right now, do so before I move on to my next point.
Another obvious one would be if someone got word, and I am not accusing this. I just want to be, for the record, I'm not accusing anybody of this. I'm just saying what an option could be is if people who are connected found out that Derek Minner was going to take a fall, and that's why a whole bunch of money came in on Shillan.
And keep in mind, we're 2 weeks removed from the Dillashaw Sterling fight, where I pointed out that the UFC knowingly pushing a seriously physically compromised fighter into the cage in TJ Dillashaw, it borders on fixing a fight. Because
if the UFC knows, Dana White claimed that he didn't know.
He claimed that he didn't know. The ref knew. They told him backstage before they ever even came out. It undermines the basic competitive assumptions at the core of the sport. And I mean, that's bad on just a strictly rhetorical and ethical level. But if, like the UFC, you really, really want fans to bet on your sport, which, I mean, if there's one thing you know about the UFC right now, they want you to bet on them. They would prefer you do it through DraftKings. They're official partner, but mostly they just want you to bet on their product. They mention the betting lines at the beginning of every fight. If Anik is on the stick, they're mentioning the live odds between each round. They're now giving you official props up on screen.
Skinny bets
are, you to bet.
Yeah, Skinny bets is in the crowd, sponsoring all the fighters.
This is a bad look, and I'm not accusing anybody specific either. Just I don't want to get my outlet in trouble, and two, I just ethically don't want to slander anybody. But keep in mind who Minner's coach is.
Just for the record, if anybody says something controversial, it 100% was Ben. I was innocent.
Absolutely. James Krause very famously, proudly says that he bets a ton on MMA, and actually has a Discord channel where he, at least for a while, tried to get people to come in on a mass betting club. I don't want to call it a scam, but because it's not a scam, it paid out. But this is a terrible look, and I have the feeling that it's going to take some sort of scandal before it really gets fixed. I mean, James Krause is the reason the UFC put out their ban on UFC fighters and those directly connected to them betting on UFC events. And TJ Dillashaw is the reason they waited to make the announcement until they did. Those are the two parties right there. Krause is the reason. Dillashaw is the reason for the delay.
Yeah,
this is a bad look.
You also have, not to, this can sound terrible, but one of the fighters involved is Chinese, and there's been a lot of controversy in that side of the world of betting on and fixing fights. And yep. I mean, we got to go back, and I know this is Japan, obviously it's a different country, but you know about the Pride days and how shady some of those things are, and the Shudo day, the pancrase, and all these things.
Yeah. Like so that Muay Thai has had tons of scandals, you know.
Yeah. So between the James Krause connection, the money coming in on Shillan being opening to, I mean, a really unknown fighter, if we're being honest, for most people to jump to that massive of a favorite, unless, you know, a whole bunch of people who suddenly waiting to put their bets in, I don't know. And then, and I want to give credit to, and I don't know if this is true, maybe Ben, you don't know this. I don't really follow the betting, but Zach Z said that a bunch of money also came in on the under. So from it looks like he said from 2.5 round, from under 2.5 rounds, like that went from -120 to -250. Do we know if that's true, or those numbers are somewhat true or close? It's okay.
It would be very easy for me to verify that. But if the straight money line changed as much as it did, the under prop almost certainly would have as well.
So that could
if
just
the word gets out, hey, Minner is on one bad wheel that's held together with duct tape and chewing gum, he's not going to make it out of the first round, then you bet on him not to make it out of the first round.
And then the way the fight went down, obviously, is the ultimate indicator. If we had an all-time war, you know, that went back and forth, something like that, that's different. But the fact that we had a guy fall.
Even the finish is 30 elbows to the outside of the guard. Does Minner have a cut on his face right now? No. Minner,
who's known for his jiu-jitsu, wasn't rolling for knee bars, and he was covering up. I was at again, I'm not accusing this of being a fixed fight. I was at a fight that was so obvious that the fight was fixed. The main event was absolutely horrendous. I was there. I knew one of the cornermen of the guy who won. I turned to the cornerman, and 100% know the cornerman was innocent, because he turned to me and gave me a look, and I gave him a look. And we both were friends with the guy who won, and we're like, and he used to promote fights, and then this is his friend's other promotion. He's in the main event. It was extremely shady, and me and the guy looked at each other like, yeah, everybody's celebrating now. We know that shit is fake.
But for the record, the unders did plummet. Yeah, like they went exactly the way you would expected. They just about doubled. In the same span of time.
So this is not going to be the end of we've heard of this. I hope that this is all coincidence. I hope. I'm rooting. I don't want controversy in our sport. No. But we've seen it in basketball. We've seen it in boxing. We've seen it in other sports. I mean, the World Series in 1919 was thrown. You know.
Yep.
I don't think we're gonna get a movie, you know, about this one. I don't know if Derek Minner is gonna be walking through the cornfields and meeting with Kevin Costner, you know, or what was the other one? 8 Men Out. Who was that? D.B. Sweeney and John Cusack. But it does not. It just doesn't look good. It does not look good.
It doesn't. And I'm surprised. Like I'm surprised that the UFC isn't taking a stronger stand on this, because sportsbooks stopped carrying PFL entirely for most of a season because PFL pulled a fast one that affected the integrity of betting. Like, they claimed some fights were live that actually had been pre-recorded, and some people that were privy to the results made money. And we're talking about minuscule money compared to what gets bet on UFC events. And nonetheless, these books like cut PFL off.
Yeah, as they should.
Like, it wouldn't take much for something similar to happen to the UFC.
Yeah.
Either by legal action, by decision of sportsbooks that are like, we don't want to get taken to the cleaners, or simply by fans stepping away.
Yeah.
Because they've lost faith in the product.
Yeah, we're gonna move on because investigations take a long time.
Yeah.
Not that I would know anything about that.
You would know.
Before that, Tajir, and I apologize if I say his first name wrong, Ulanbekov took on Nate Maness. Really quick fight. Just Ulanbekov caught him. He took him down, a scramble caught, and he landed this.
The John Jones high elbow guillotine.
Oh, it was like it. I thought Nate Maness's head was gonna pop off. It was, and then I started thinking like, oh, like, is he surviving this? I started thinking for a second like, wow, he might have survived this, and if he did, Ulanbekov might burn out his arms. And then he was tapping. I was like, okay, great. I don't know if there's really else you can take from this. Like, that's a good showing from Ulanbekov. A lot of people thought that Ulanbekov won against Tim Elliott. Now, if he has that win, we're probably talking. We might be matchmaking this guy right now in that division. How you feeling about this guy moving forward?
I think he is a top 10, if not top 5 talent, and I think he's going to start stringing together wins, and they're going to be exciting enough that he doesn't get any kind of slow roll. Like, he could be one of the next couple of guys that burst through the ceiling once the best of 9, championship series is over.
I like, I like
the
his
other World Series.
Yeah, I like his wrestling. Though I do think it might be slightly his control might be a little over. That could have been a little bit of Tim Elliott, always being tough, scrambling. But I love his output, and obviously that frame. Like, he's huge for the weight class. He's tall and lengthy. I wonder how long he can maintain being a 125-pounder. That is obviously a concern. Speaking of, we didn't talk about this. Speaking of going back to the last fight about controversy and throwing stuff. How about the Philadelphia Phillies? What do you think the punishment for them will be when MLB finds out that they blew the series on purpose?
Well, if they're blowing the series on purpose, they're doing a terrible job of it right now because they're up 1-0.
Oh, they're winning.
Yeah. They're just trying to keep it interesting,
Yeah. Well, get more money in,
Yeah.
Before that, Marco Madsen versus Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson won a unanimous decision. Really, really good showing from Grant Dawson, minus the part where he missed weight. But in fairness, he did take the fight on short notice. Not like insanely short notice, where but I think it was like 2 weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks. That said, it was a very safe. He went an extremely safe route, but it felt like the football game where they keep I felt like the football game where you're watching the football game and you have you have fantasy, you have the quarterback, but they keep handing it to the running back, and the running back keeps getting like 7 yards to carry, and you're like,
yep.
And you're getting mad, but you understand why they're doing it. That's how I felt
I completely agree. And unless that quarterback was on your fantasy team, you're just happy to take the win. That felt like this to me. The good news, obviously not great that Dawson missed weight. He made no excuses for himself in the wake of this. In fact, he was almost charmingly earnest in his post-fight interview. So not a great sign that he missed weight. Yes, a good sign that not only did he thoroughly out-wrestle a guy that walks out to the literal Olympic theme, but he was the guy who was rolling downhill by the end of the fight, as evidenced by the fact that he got the finish. It just got easier and easier for Dawson as they went along. Like, we'll talk on the preview sometimes. I'll mention that there are certain guys who are good at wrestling in a way that they are winning the wrestling exchanges and the other guy's getting tired faster. That was this fight for me, for Dawson.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that Dawson did well. One, obviously, he has he has the youth on his side. Now he's not
Yep.
super young, but Mark Madsen is 38 years old, but he's a Olympic wrestler 38.
Yep.
Killer on your body. It's not the guy who, was a good athlete in high school, but started training MMA when he was 28. This is a guy who's been wrestling since he was probably 6 years old. God knows how many wrestling matches. So he had the age on his side. I think he had which is surprising for a guy who is a former featherweight. He had the size advantage. You could see that. I mean, he was hulking over Madsen.
He was a former featherweight plus, like,
yeah,
he blew
and then
away
he
at
missed
least
weight,
once.
which obviously helps to it. The cardio advantage, and you mentioned the style of it helps, but also the age and that'll help wear a guy out. Putting a wrestler on his back for huge periods of time, but also in the broadcast mentioned this, and I know Dawson mentioned this in what his game plan was, and he did two things he said he wanted to do, and it was perfect. He wanted to kick the legs, and he wanted to shoot on the legs. And the reason why, and I'm going to explain this too, I think most people understand this, but the reason why he talked about want to shoot on a wrestler, you'd be like, oh, why would you want to wrestle with a silver medalist? Greco-Roman is if you guys are not familiar, that's the style that Mark Madsen comes from. Greco-Roman is strictly upper body. It basically you can't grab the legs, you can't touch the legs. Like legs, it'd almost be like if two humans had their legs were cut off and they could only wrestle from their belly button up, their waist up. So he's not used to defending someone grabbing his legs. Whizzers, sprawling out, like that stuff that doesn't really happen. Greco-Roman is a lot of chest on chest, working angles, shoulder shucking, trying to angle, underhooking, slide bys, but all upper body. That's what you get in Greco-Roman.
I mean, at best, you get suplexes, but that's only either at the lighter weights or when you're Alexander Karelin. Otherwise, it's usually pretty slow moving. You're
getting gut wrenches that are absolutely pointless, and gut wrenches are absolutely pointless in MMA. Like, doesn't matter, things like that. Well, I will say, let's mention that being that Madsen is not American, he's probably never wrestled folk style match in his life.
No, probably.
So that part of it. Now, he probably wrestled a little freestyle. At one point, he probably had to pick, but he probably has a little experience in freestyle, and there was attacks on the legs and that. But I think that was a really good point. I want to point this out because Dawson said this in the post-fight interview, and it seemed like everybody was kind of pushing this thing was sorry, when's the next wrestling clinic? You got me on that one. Nice job. I'm trying to explain to maybe the one person who doesn't understand. I know most of you guys all do understand. I apologize. You messed up my thought. Oh, talking about straight wrestling, it was not a straight wrestling match. No. Takedowns open when guys are throwing punches, calf kicks, all that. In a straight wrestling match, Greco-Roman style, even old Mark Madsen, he still would pin Grant Dawson in about 1 minute. He'd pin him 1 minute. So, don't mention that. Whatever. My only thing I had about this fight that I was kind of I thought that was wrong, and I think it was absolutely brilliant. I think it was super smart. The top control was great by Dawson. The second round, I think there was some bad refereeing in the second round. I thought for a really long time, Dawson was sitting in Madsen's guard and not doing anything for about 3 or 4 minutes. Didn't do anything. I'm surprised he didn't get stood up. Not even warnings. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I am a little bit surprised by that. Was the referee? Who was the Dean? It was Herb Dean. I don't think of Herb Dean as especially stand-up crazy. Like, he's a guy that I think will often let people work on the ground. I can't build up any outrage about it. Like, Dean probably looked at these guys and was like, they probably both want to be on the ground anyway. It's not like Madsen was down there like Bisping, like, hey, stand this up.
He probably should have.
Probably should have.
That said, I want to make this clear. I don't think it would have made a difference. I think if Herb Dean stood him up, I think he would have taken him right back down.
Or just kept kicking his legs. And he got a couple of leg kicks so bad that they almost took Madsen off his feet. you know?
Yeah, so that might be a reason why Madsen didn't want it on the feet either. Dawson got on the mic. Well, I think his fight was a little boring. His call out was not. I love how he did it. He called out Tony Ferguson and he basically said, "I'll sign the contract right now. If this fight doesn't happen, that means Tony Ferguson turned it down." The way he said it, like, that's how you do. That's how you call someone out.
And specifically, that's how you call Tony Ferguson out. Like,
Yeah.
that is like catnip to like the wild man, you know, from Southern California. Like, there's no way. Like, I'm sure Tony Ferguson has already responded with a tweet that's like 80% emojis, you know, and like champ shit only hashtag, and it has like 5 actual words in it. But yeah.
The only other way you call out Tony Ferguson if you say something like, "I could beat him in a fight, but even more importantly, like, I could throw a fastball more than he can." Tony Ferguson couldn't hit my curveball, you know, something like that. Then Tony Ferguson's gonna fight you, you know. Or he tried to steal second on me, I'll throw him out. So I'm good with that. Like, usually I'd want to use Tony Ferguson's name for somebody else, but Dawson is that kind of up and comer. And when a guy has a perfect call up, like the way he does it, I'm gonna give it to him.
I'm fine with that as well. I mean, otherwise, see, that's a good fight for name value. It's a good fight that if Ferguson wants to come back down to 155, you know, like that's kind of a sensible matchup. Otherwise, dude, I mean, it's time to start giving Dawson fights further up the ladder. And I wouldn't normally say that about a guy that missed weight, but again, just slightly extenuating circumstances. And unless it's a thing that happens again, I'm inclined to give him a pass on this once.
I also, the reason why I want to say it's a smart call out, it's the biggest name that you could call out without much of a threat at all. Like, you could call out other guys who are lower in the rankings and lower name, but a much bigger threat than Tony Ferguson. To me, it makes so much sense. That's why I think it was a really good call out by Grant Dawson. So that's the main card. Let's move on to the prelims. A rematch that I know was part of that Phoenix series, so it is what it is. A rematch I don't know if a lot of people were calling for. Miranda Maverick take on Shayna Young. I'll say this. Well, a new haircut, Shayna Young, by the way. So it looked like she took off about something like 4 or 5 inches of her hair to make weight, but she did make weight. The fight was actually somewhat competitive until Maverick got her first takedown. As soon as she got her first takedown, she was like, "Oh, this is super easy. Like, I'm gonna do my Grant Dawson impression. This is where I have the biggest gap." Even though she probably could have won a stand-up battle anyways, but this is where I have the biggest gap. And it was rinse and repeat at that point. And utter domination.
Utter domination. And I mean, I've felt this way about Maverick for a while. I know that she comes from a Muay Thai background, but even going all the way back to her Invicta days, just her built-in physicality, like just the physical tools that she was born with, and something in her innate disposition makes me think that like her best moments and like her best advantage over the rest of the division really comes with takedowns, ground and pound, and grappling. She has a meanness on the ground, and she's simply too short to make her kickboxing game work on a lot of people in the 125-pound division.
She has good control. She's very physically strong, which I think makes it even better when she gets. I mean, you look at her, but she's ripped. I mean, she's getting those Sarah McMahon arms going.
like she's definitely in that Ariane Carnelosi, Jessica Andrade type. Yeah, she is.
Yeah, she's that person. She's doing the curls in the mirror. Like, she's doing it.
Oh yeah.
I like, so she mauls people on the ground. You mentioned, like, I love that she does everything right. She controls the position, then she does the punishment. She batters them up, and then she looks for submissions, and she keeps mixing it up. All right, ground him. Let me control the position again. Okay, I got a position secure. Let me land shots. Okay, I might have submission moves, and then as soon as she does the submission, she goes back to controlling the position. And the thing I'll say about this, we're talking about Ulanbekov being a young fighter in the division. You said it could be a top 5 fighter. I feel the same way with Miranda Maverick, and she's only 25.
She's only 25. She has a couple of losses, but they're all losses to really, really good fighters. And some of them, if they ran them back, I like her chances in those fights.
Well, the Macy Barber, a lot of people thought she won that fight.
Yeah. Then, I mean,
I
she
did,
lost to Aaron Blanchfield. You know, Aaron
which
Blanchfield is
aged
great.
well. Yeah,
Yeah.
which aged well and could age even better next weekend. Um, yeah, I think she has a really really bright future. I think, and another thing we didn't mention is this was when she was losing to Blanchfield and these other fighters. She was a full time college student. Now she's a full time fighter. So besides the age and that thing going, and it sounds like she's working with Elliot Marshall, who's now recently left Elevation Fight Team. It's more one on one, which could be a really good thing for her. I just was a really, really good performance from her. She called out Molly McCann, which to me would have made huge sense, and she has been calling her out. It would have made huge sense like 3 months ago. She's booked next weekend. Like, I guess.
I mean, I guess depending on what comes out of that, but I didn't like that either. I think she needs a more relevant opponent. I like her against the winner of Jennifer Maia versus Marina Moroz in 2 weeks.
There we have the exact same matchup. That's the one I wrote
Boom.
down. I'll say this: if Molly McCann wasn't booked, to me it's that Tony Ferguson call where she's got a good name. If I'm going to fight her, I'm going all in. Like, I'm going all the chips. I'm like, if I'm Marina Maverick, again, this is Molly McCann not booked. I'm calling her out and I say, hey, I'm coming to London. I'm coming to Birmingham. I'm coming to wherever. I'm fighting you in your hometown. I'm going to beat you. You know, I'm going all in. I'm going to beat your ass in front of all your fans. I'm going to make your fans my fans when I'm done. You know what?
I'll have them shouting USA.
Go all the way. go all the way. Molly, I would beat you so bad in front of your fans when I'm done. They're going to be crowning me the new queen of England. Like, I'm going all in. You know what I mean? Anyways, yes, we both had the same fight. It seemed like a lot of people are okay with that. Before that, Mario Batista took on Benito Lopez.
Did he really, though?
Mario Batista bullied Benito Lopez. If this was a high school like fight, this would be the one we only like suspending Mario Batista. You know what? Like, two guys get a fight.
This fight had a clear victim. It takes two to have a fight. This was just a beating.
And like you bring in Batista's like parents. You show them the video, and you're like, I mean, technically we could suspend Benito Lopez, but like, do we have to? Like, this was a pillared post. This was, I think you had a pretty good night. I had an okay, not really that good a night, but this is one of the fights I felt like we were really. I mean, Batista was a huge favorite, but we were all in. We said this was going to happen. I thought Batista was better than Lopez before he left.
Exactly. And I was like, even if Lopez comes back as exactly the same dude he was in 2019, this is a bad matchup for him. We both picked Batista by finish.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say other than obviously it looked great for Batista. I have no idea how well this will age because I wouldn't be surprised if Benito Lopez never fights again.
Yeah, he's dealt with a lot of injuries. He's been out for 3 years. He left Team Alpha Male, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, but you know, some little changes in there. It made no sense to matchmaking. I'm like, why would they book this? Like, that's such a tough test, and you're returning against a guy who looks like he killed. What I love is besides the beatdown, Batista's the confidence. You can see him oozing with confidence now, which I always think makes a guy a better fighter. His pressure from the very good, he was walking him down with no respect. Didn't respect his skills at all. Had no concern for what was coming back to him. His output was great. His variety was great. He has power, and suddenly, the guy looks like freaking Charles Oliveira on the ground in his last 2 fights. Yeah. Puts a clinic on Brian Kelleher, who's a grappler himself. Then, I mean, Benito Lopez doesn't look, really not known for his grappling, but cutting through his guard, getting to the mount, almost hit an inverted triangle, almost had a straight armbar, finishes with another armbar. It was a clinic.
The closing, well, no, I'm glad you said that because the closing sequence literally looked like somebody toying with somebody else in the gym. Like, it looked like a black belt toying with a white belt.
You know what it looked like? You ever go to the jiu-jitsu class and they teach you like a 45-step move, and you're like, yeah, like okay, so you're gonna go for this armbar, and when they roll out, you're gonna switch to this omoplata, and then they're gonna roll through, and at that point, you're gonna grab the shoulder, and you're gonna take the back. But like it all worked. Like Batista did all 45 steps, and then finally submitted them, and was one of those ones where like it almost looked like he was like, yeah, I had like 8 more steps coming after that. I submitted him now. Just really, really good. I think he needs he needs to step up in competition, like way big step up. I want to fight him fighting someone good. I was looking through the rankings. It's such a loaded division. I mean, it's the best division in my opinion.
Yep.
I would put him against Cody Stamen.
I like the Stamen fight. Names I had would be either Davey Grant, who all of a sudden is actually on a nice little streak, or the winner of Montel Jackson versus Julio Arce next week.
Oh, I know. That's a tricky.
And any of those guys will be on 3-fight winning streaks, same as Batista. That just seemed appropriate.
Yeah, I'm good with it. It's 135. You can't make a bad fight.
Nope, can't make a bad. You can't make a bad matchup, but the top 15 is getting crowded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Adrian Yanez has won like 6 or 7 in a row, and he's just like barely creeping in there.
Yeah. All right. Next, Jinh Fry took on Polyana Viana. Polyana Viana, who is an absolute wizard on the ground. That's what she knows. Suddenly, she's a power striker, knocking out someone who's really hard to stop in Jinh Fry. Like, wow.
Blew her up.
Yeah. And that's like, Fry is tough. Like, say what you want. Like, she's not the most boring, but like, her getting stopped like that was fantastic.
It cuts against everything that Jinh Fry stands for, because she stands for being defensively solid and cautious to a fault. It's why so many of her fights are dreadful to watch. So for Viana to just blow her up with punches in seconds, it either means that Fry actually at 37 or 38 has slowed to the point that style isn't going to work for her anymore, or Viana is just turning another corner. Which is great, you know, because obviously she has her grappling background, but on the feet she had been sort of, had been turning into a low power out striker until either she or the other fighter forced it to the ground. But here she blew up a very, very durable fighter. Yeah. I'm struggling to think of how many people just switched on power like this after being this established in another direction as a fighter. I'm thinking like Mike Pyle.
There you go. It's really good for the division. I think, she has that backstory where she beat up the creepo and at the beach or whatever. And she's absolutely drop dead gorgeous. Like, she's very marketable.
Big Marcel dropped in. We didn't give him a shout out, but Marcel Dorf did drop into the chat, said we should check out what she tweeted. I assume that she tweeted that she's reopening her OnlyFans. So for you aficionados that enjoy providing mixed martial artists with an additional revenue stream, please do go help yourselves and help the fighters. That's
why I'm sure all these guys, and they want to get in the OnlyFans to help the fighters. That's why, right, guys?
Hey, well, help yourself and help the fighter. I'm just saying it can be a mutually agreeable thing. That's much better than creeping out on some weirdo's Tumblr like hottest chicks in MMA. At least do something for the actual fighter, and get a personally signed picture of her feet or whatever it is that she's selling.
All right, now I got to log out of my Tumblr account. Thanks, Ben, for taking away all the viewers from my Tumblr account. I'm a little concerned. I wonder. I don't want to get too excited about it because I'm wondering if this might be a little bit of Fry's age. She's up there in age. She's undersized. This knockout might be ones where it tells a little bit more about Fry than it does about Viana. I hope I'm wrong about that though.
But you know what? Considering that 6 months ago we were being like, dude, it'll be a shame if after everything she's accomplished in her career, Jinh Fry never gets a UFC win. Now she's got 2 of them. Yeah. At 37, if she walks away, I mean, she's had another career this whole time. She's like a radiology tech, which is like a well-paid medical, specialty. Like she'll be fine. She can.
What she should be? Like Jinh Fry should be like the after effects of like a weight cut. Like just use like Ginger Fry with her like shirt pulled up and just ripped up abs, like a hydroxy cut or something. Like they find a girl who like kind of looks like Ginger Fry, who's like
Ramona Pasquale.
Yeah, like take that and then have
I lost 50 pounds with hydroxy
and then just have Ginger Fry.
Picture is Pasquale and
and Ginger Fry's like the afterwards.
Yeah.
Before that, we had Johnny Munoz versus Ludwig
Shillan.
Yeah, nice job. How do you say Shillan?
Shillan.
Yeah,
you may not like. I wouldn't bother putting too much time into learning how to pronounce it.
Yeah, he might be. This might be the last time. I'll say this: Munoz. I was a little concerned about his stand-up, being that he was like absolutely crushed in his last fight. I was worried that he might be gun shy, and it was the opposite. I think what happened, a guy said, "Wow, I'm a wizard on the ground," and we saw that even in this fight, in just a little bit of scrambles, his takedown defense, his back takes. I mean, it was incredible. But I think it was when oh shit, I need to strike better, and he did. He looked like a completely different fighter on the feet. He looked good. He was jabbing, straight shots down the pipe. Shillan really struggled to get around his jab, and he was just getting pieced up. I was like, man, when did Johnny Munoz get these hands all of a sudden? He looked great.
Yeah, and it is the striking of a man who is completely unafraid of being taken to the ground.
Yeah. It was one other fight that I think we nailed pretty good. Just a tough stylistic matchup. For Shillan. I got nothing else to say. I like Munoz moving forward.
Me too. Especially just considering his grappling was never in doubt, but showing the confidence, which you've mentioned a couple times on this show, and just the evolving striking. Yeah, I'm feeling good about him going forward too. Crowded division, but he's definitely got some spark.
Yeah. Speaking of having some spark, before that, Jake Hadley took on Carlos Candelero. Jake Hadley had a lot of buzz coming off the Contender Series. Didn't have a good showing in his UFC debut. That was not the case in this fight. He looked great. Candelero is another guy that his record doesn't show, but I really do believe he's better than his record shows. That said, Hadley was on point. Incredible output tonight. Landing beautiful shots. I love the speed on his feet. I love the variety in his attacks, and then the slick submission skills. He threw up. He had a triangle immediately. Started hitting those mean knees. I was blown away by Hadley, and he's so young. So I feel really good about him moving forward.
Super young. He's gonna get every chance to shine. We mentioned on the preview. He's young. He's British. He's got that little bit of sizzle, that little bit of cockiness to him, where you could see him when he gets more opportunities to have a mic in front of him, when he gets just more face time on camera, he could turn a corner from being confident to being a little outrageous and starting to, say Patty type stuff. Like he definitely has more Pimblett or McGregor in him than he does Jack Shore.
Leon Edwards. Yeah.
Yeah. Leon Edwards.
So you saw a little bit of that, the way he beat the shit out of Carlos Candelero, and then he called him out for missing weight, and he's like, yeah, he missed weight on purpose. It was a strategy. Like he wanted to be the bigger guy because he wanted to wrestle. So not only did you beat him up, then
nasty stuff, man.
Yeah, you had to call it his honesty. Really good. That division, flyweight, just seems like this new influx of guys in the division that Hadley and Ulanbekov, who we saw, and Makayev, who we saw a couple weeks ago. Just it's becoming such an interesting division. It is. I'm not 3 years from now, flyweight might be bantamweight. And then I always have to say, we talk about how loaded bantamweight is. There's a couple of these flyweights we talk about that are not going to be able to stay at flyweight. So it's going to become even more loaded.
And you, as you mentioned, I put Kyle Lawheed's comments on the screen. Hadley, he's got that body that he's not the tallest guy in the division, but he has long arms and legs, has more muscle than you think. I agree with that. He's never as skinny as I expect him to be. Will he eventually have to move up? Almost certainly. Or maybe he'll just decide to. Maybe he'll just decide, hey, I can hang with those guys. And it wouldn't be the case now, but maybe 2 years from now he decides that's actually an easier division to break into the top 10 or top 5.
Yeah, his body structure, it reminds me a lot like Casey Kenny. Like people forget, like Casey Kenny was originally a flyweight.
Yeah.
And then he just grew out of it. And that's kind of, I feel like that might be the same way with Hadley. The first fight of the night, really the people's main event. Roman Pascal took on Tamaris Vidal. I think Dominic Cruz's commentary on this fight was spot on when he was basically saying like Pascal is just letting Vidal do whatever she wants, like letting her go first. And then Vidal, to her credit, like we're making little jokes. I'm not excited about her, but she landed a beautiful switch, like flying switch knee. Came up with the right side. I think she came up with the right and then switched midway to the left, landed perfectly in the suplex, dropped Pascal to the canvas. Nice way to start the evening.
Nice way to start the evening. The result notwithstanding, I had this fight wrong before they ever walked to the cage. Just the fact that Vidal made weight. We're talking about a woman that's fought 150, 155 pounds in the past. Frankly, looked like she had a little excess on her. She's not the one that missed weight. She's like doing a dance on her way out to the cage that, probably had Pasquale halfway gassed just from watching it.
Yeah. And she, talking about making weight, being that she's big, she also was one of the ones who got stuck, didn't come in. Or what was it? Was it Wednesday night, Thursday? Was it Thursday?
They got him Wednesday, I think. Yeah.
It was like Wednesday night, right?
They were stuck. Yeah, they were stuck in Brazil. There's political unrest happening in Sao Paulo where just stuff like closed down the airport. Yeah. There were, like serious rioting going on. And so, yeah, like 3 of the fighters on this card.
They missed the media day.
Yeah, they missed the media day. Vidal,
including the main eventer.
Yeah. Lemos and Viana all missed their flight.
Big Marcel hated the Big Marcel's the complete opposite of me. And he hates the trash talk. He hates the showboating. He hates the dancing. I'm going to be in New York City next week, so I actually won't be here for the recap. Ben will be doing it. I'll be there. I'm looking forward to Israel Adesanya's walkout. Like, I'm hoping he does something crazy.
Hopefully they let him again. I mean, the one that they gave him in Australia was just so amazing. Hopefully they do again for this. They're clearly banking on it being their biggest card of the year.
They did the Undertaker one last time.
Yeah,
and
right.
That was kind of cool. And I don't know. Hopefully he does something cool. So you guys have it. We have covered all 11 fights. Let's wrap this up. Let's do some of the fun stuff. The Bulls, the Bears, the cut list, the Dude Seriously, and the awards. Ben, do we have the awards?
We almost certainly do.
All right. So the way we do the awards, we basically say what our awards within the event, and then we'll announce who the UFC actually picked for their awards. I'll make my picks. Ben will make his picks. All the listeners can put out your picks. We'll add them to the screen, or at least mention them.
Right. We have 4 performances of the night. Second week in a row, there's no fight of the night. There are simply 4 performance of the night bonuses. Okay. So let us know in the chat whom you would give bonuses to, and if you would have given a fight of the night, go ahead and let us know. We will read off and or put some of those on the screen. Okay. Looking at it, I got 4 of them.
I got 4 of them. I got 4 in my mind.
Dude, I mean, there's 5 that need to get handed out. So there's one really deserving person that's going to get left out in the cold.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will go with the one that a lot of the people are mentioning. Even though the stoppage wasn't the best, Amanda Lemos in the main event, getting a knockout in the main event is always probably gets yourself a bonus. Pauliana Viana, to me, would probably, if I was ranking them, and I'm not going to do this, I would probably put that number 1. To 45-second, 46-second, whatever it was, knockout over a tough veteran, Jinu Fry. I'd put that one. Ulan Bekov, that was such a quick, great submission. I give him one. And my last one, and I'm kind of torn between a couple of them, being Neil Magny getting the record. I thought about doing that. Dawson can't make it. I know he can't get an award, but though he was had a really good performance. Marina Maverick pillar to post performance against Young, but I got to go with Batista. Even though he was this huge favorite, excuse me, he was a huge favorite. He did what you should do when you're a huge favorite. Didn't even get out of the first round. Like, there was like seconds left in the first round, and he didn't even give his opponent a chance to get out. So those are my four: Lemos, Viana, Undercard, and Batista. Ben, let's hear your four. Not the four of the UFC, but your four.
I actually agree with the UFCs.
Okay.
You know, in a blind squirrel finds the acorn moment, the broken clock is right twice a day. I agree with the UFC. They gave Neil Magny an award for his Bravo choke of Danny Rodriguez, Mario Batista for his reverse triangle armbar, Poliana Viana for that nasty knockout, and Tamarez Vidal for the jumping knee.
Vidal. So Lemos gets nothing.
Lemos gets nothing. Tagir Ulanbekov gets nothing.
Wow. And Vidal with the flying. Yeah. Maybe because like the flying knee, like she only raised up like an inch and a half off the canvas when she jumps. It might be the reason why I didn't give it to you. So wow, I'm shocked that Lemos didn't get something. Maybe because the first round was a little boring. Maybe I don't know. You know what? I think the referee stole the money from Lemos.
I agree, because it's tough to justify giving a bonus for a knockout that we opened the show by arguing whether it was too soon. If he'd given her a couple more punches just to lay a woman out flat, I think she's getting the bonus. But you know what? I am fine with 3 of these bonuses going to people that are probably making 12 and 12.
Yeah.
Because it is life-changing money for them.
That's
it's always the undercard guys that go, I bought a house with my bonus. You know, I bought my mom a car. You know, like so I'm A-okay with it. Lemos will be fine.
Bass mentioned that Hadley was another one that could have been in the running. So it was good performances. If you had to pick a fight of that, which one would you have done? Rodriguez Magny?
Probably.
Yeah.
You know, like just the other fights that went past the first round tended to be pretty one-sided.
Yeah.
You know, that was the only one that had any real swings and momentum to me.
Yeah. And before we move on to the other stuff, I just want to make this very clear. Even though the referee, I do think the stoppage might have been slightly early, I'm not arguing. I'm not saying like it would have been better off if she got knocked out. I'm saying for the bonuses she would have. I'd rather have a referee jump in and save the fighter from damage. So I just want to say that. Sucks to be Lemos, but it is what it is. You want to go Bulls and Bears? Or you want to go Cutlass?
Oh, let's do the cut list.
All right,
that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, the cut list is the way we do the cut list. Obviously, it's pretty self-explanatory. We say who the UFC should cut to make room for other people. They have to be on both mine and Ben's list. If one of us does not name that person, we say the UFC can save them. We'll throw some readers' cut lists out there too. Ben, I have 3 people. How many do you have?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wow, 4.
My cut list is almost never longer than yours. I must be grouchy.
Let's see who I saved. So start it up, Ben. Who would you cut first?
Ramona Pasquale, 0-3 in the UFC, missed weight this time, and
won by stoppage.
Won by stoppage. Yeah, and just is actually getting less competitive, and she's not losing to the cream of the crop. She's losing to middling talents. So yeah, like 0-3, she needs to go. I mean,
you know what? Okay, yep. That wasn't on my list.
Oh, that wasn't on your list?
No, it was.
Oh, okay, that was. My next one, Carlos Candelario. He lost on the Contender Series.
I know.
And he's now 0-2 in the UFC.
I know.
Losing to, I mean, he's lost to good prospects. Like Tatsuro Taira and Jake Hadley are both probably future top 10 fighters. But he just hasn't really looked like he belongs. And having lost on the Contender Series, he almost by definition doesn't belong.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Carlos Candelario is my boy. But missing weight on top of being, really 0-3 in the UFC. I know technically only 2, but no. Well, if we're going to count the loss, then we'd have to count the 1 win and way back in season 1. But yeah, not good for Carlos Candelario. I would cut him too. So we're 2 for 2. Who's your third person?
Sad as it makes me to say, it is actually never mind. Not Benito Lopez, but Shayna Young can go. She's 1-3 in the UFC, and the one woman she's beaten, Gina Mazzani, I think might even have been cut.
Yeah. So I didn't cut Shayna Young, and I'll
Did
tell you why. I'll tell you why. Everything you said is true. And I said, you know what? This girl's willing to cut her hair. A woman, not a man. That's different. A woman's willing to cut her hair. I'll give her one more fight after that.
The Shanimal gets one more
Just because she
in the
cut
UFC.
her hair. Like she's committed.
Oh, so does that mean you cut Ludwig?
I didn't. I did not.
Who did you cut?
Ludwig. I cut Derek Minner. He lost 3 in a row. He probably maybe blew out his knee. Maybe who knows? Maybe he's going to jail. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe you could fight Lee Murray or somebody in jail, Mayhem Miller or something. I don't know. Yeah, I'd get rid of Derek Minner. So you saved Derek Minner, and I saved Shayna Young. So we only agreed on 2.
Yeah, we agreed on the first 2 losers of the night.
So
Pascual and Candelario. Yeah,
and Candelario. So get back in those 2. All right.
And I'm just saying that because I'm guessing that we don't see Benito Lopez again.
Yeah.
Like after that performance, if he dings a knee in camp, you go, he's gonna hang it up, isn't he?
Yeah, he might be fighting fighting bare knuckle boxing or who knows. All right, let's get to the Bulls and the Bears. The Bulls and the Bears are a stock market reference when things are going good. It's a Bulls market or bull stock when things are going bad. It's a bear market or bear stock. We do it hockey style, 3, 2, 1. 1 being the best in the Bulls, the worst if you're the Bears. Let's keep it negative, Ben. I'll let you kick it off. Who are your Bears? And again, the listeners, throw it out there. We'll add it to the screen.
Oh, Bears. Nate Maness. I'm one of the ones that was surprised that he was cutting weight.
Same.
He was not a small 135er. He looked very drawn on the scale and still looked fairly drawn in the cage. He looked like the machinist. And then to have such a bad performance, just got run over so badly. Yeah, it's the start of a new venture, and it could not have gotten off to a worse start for him. Got to throw out Jin Fry. One of the constants over the course of her career. And, right now, if we made a list, she's one of the 10 greatest. Hell, she's one of the 5 greatest atomweights of all time. But the thing you could always hang your hat on is that Jin Fry is not easy to get out of there. She's tough to look good against. Just every fight of hers just gets stuck in the mud, can't get out of first gear. So for her to just get blistered like that, that's a bad look. And the fact that we're openly speculating over whether it's due to her age and this is the beginning of a serious decline, that's the definition of a bear moment to me. Ramona Pascual. If you can't beat Tamires Vidal, then the bottom of the barrel doesn't go any deeper. She just lost badly in what I think may be the lowest level UFC fight of the post-Tough era. So of the last now 17 years, this may be the worst fight on paper the UFC has put together in that entire time, outside of heavyweight, and she lost badly. So you can't dig any deeper.
Yeah, I can't put her on my list because it's like, was her stock ever up? It'd be like buying MP3 player stock right now or something like. You might say make some money, I guess. Yeah, I'll go with. I'm gonna go Derek Minner. I'm gonna go Glory MMA. That whole situation is okay. Even if they're 100% innocent, they'll never be innocent in some people's mind. So that's not good. And the fact that Grant Dawson also left that team and looked fantastic tonight after his first fight is usually not a good sign. So that's my number 3. Oh, yeah, and not to mention Minner lost 3 in a row, and maybe he does have a really bad knee injury after this. It's not good for him. My number 2, how about the Rodriguez's? Marina and Daniel Rodriguez, main event, co-main event. The Rodriguez family,
The happy couple.
Taking the L's, both by stoppage too, and they both were the betting favorites, which is not a good time for the Rodriguezes. And my number one got saved a little bit by Grant Dawson, but fighters missing weight. They went 1-3. We had 4 weight misses. They were Pascal, Candelario, Grant Dawson. Who was the other one? Who am I forgetting? Somebody else missed weight. Oh, Benito Lopez, right? He missed weight, right? They went 1-3. All 3 losses were by stoppage. So not a good time if you're missing weight. They lose some money, lose some fights. Not good. Can't get any bonuses. Not good. All right, let's go to the Bulls. Now, this is the list you want to be on. These are the ones whose stock is rising. Ben, I'll let you go first again.
Okay. I will start with Neil Magny. Just the man does it again. And we already talked a lot about him during the actual segment on his fight. So I'll just real quickly say that he continues to defy the odds. He continues to defy age by just being an incrementally better version of the same fighter he's always been. You love to see it happen on a card where you just mentioned people missed weight and lost badly in 3 out of 4 cases. Just continues to be the picture of professionalism. Go Neil Magny. I will say Jake Hadley. That's how you come back and reclaim your prospect shine. Almost every prospect gets, especially a very young one, takes a loss somewhere on the way up. Just ask Sean O'Malley. Just, in Conor McGregor's case, it was before he got to the UFC. But if you're a young prospect, you're going to run into an opponent or just a night of bad luck, someone that was too much too soon. How you bounce back is how you're perceived. His shine is back. He will not be fighting second from the bottom of a fight night card probably ever again. That's a good sign. Number 1, travel difficulties from Brazil. Who knew that the 3 fighters who got stuck in Brazil in the most stressful imaginable situation, like our guys Christian Stein and Marcelo Alonso, our Portuguese speaking and Brazil based correspondents, were just talking with these people while they're like, yeah, I'm still stuck in the airport. It's going to be another 24 hours. It's not like I'm stuck at home or I'm at my gym. It's like I'm making my final weight cut while I'm stuck in an airport.
Yeah.
For them to show up, all make weight and all win by finish goes against all the conventional MMA wisdom. And it is a triumph of just being professional, buckling down, and just kind of willing yourself to succeed. Good job.
Yeah. I've been stuck in airports 2 or 3 times for really long times, and you're miserable. I can imagine doing that while you're weight cutting. That must be terrible. And then you jump on the plane and go all the way across the ocean. Yeah, that sounds terrible. All right, I'll get to mine. Mario Batista. The guy's 5-1 over his last 6. He's got back-to-back first-round submission wins. Obviously, they're not the best people, Benito Lopez and Brian Kelleher, but what I love about in both those fights, they were pillar to post. Like, there was never any thing coming out of him. He's had 2 flawless victories. Mario Batista's stock is rising. The guy looks like a top 10 guy. Like, he looks so good. My number 2, how about Colorado fighters? Neil Magny and Miranda Maverick, both from Colorado, both pick up fighting out of Colorado. Both looked fantastic tonight. Maverick mauling her opponent on the ground. Magny getting the record, 3rd round submission. And my number 1, I got to go with the main event. I got to go Amanda Lemos. If we went from talking about her opponent as the next title challenger to being now her, I love that she made the call. Like, I'll fight this weekend. She might have like a little boogie woman going on where she's knocking people out. She's submitting them. Not one. I don't know if people are, whoever wins when they start asking next week, hey, what about Amanda Lemos? I don't know if they'll be too excited to take that fight.
No, I don't think so either. Scott McCrate mentions in here that Fight Circus, it's free on Fight TV if you're interested. Dude, quick plug. If you haven't watched Fight Circus, I am not compensated by them at all, but they are the best freak show in the world. Like, just they'll have a fight where you spin a wheel for the rule set, and it's like, okay, kicks only. or one guy can kick, the other one can only punch. Like they had jiu-jitsu in a car last time. I think it is Muay Thai in a living room this time. I'm in early negotiations with them to go over to Thailand and fight a bunch of barnyard animals. You'll be the first to hear about it if I am. I did like your shout out to Colorado for the Bulls. I can just picture Elliot Marshall kind of like looking across the valley and being like, why don't I just do like Whitman? And instead of a gym, just get 5 really good fighters and give them all my attention.
Yeah, that sounds like what he's doing.
It sounds like what he's doing. And Elliot Marshall, low key, one of the biggest success stories out of the first 3 seasons of The Ultimate Fighter, mostly because of what he's done afterward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, let's get to the dude seriously. I got 2. Do you have any dude seriouslys?
Yeah, I got a couple dude seriouslys.
All right, I'll go first this time. First, Jake Hadley. Like he talked about a guy helping him during the weight cut. He's like, yeah, some UFC official was watching me. What was that guy's name again? Like, dude, if you're gonna shout someone out, at least know his name. Like, dude, seriously, come on. The other one, going back to last week. I gave Calvin Cater shit for coming out to the House of the Rising Sun, which is a fantastic song. But if you're from Boston, come out to a Boston song, not a song about New Orleans. Then you got Marina Rodriguez a week later. Brazilian coming out to a Boston song. Like, dude, seriously? Come on.
What did she walk out to?
She came out to ship it off to Boston. She didn't come out. They just had the music. I didn't hear the Dropkick Mark V's, but that's what it's famous for.
Somebody gotta translate those lyrics for her so she knows. Like,
yeah, I mean, she's a really big fan of Boston. Maybe, I don't know. maybe that's what, if she loses her leg, she wants to ship to Boston. I guess I don't know. What's your dude seriously?
Oh, dude, seriously. Benito Lopez, I know you've been gone for 3 years, but that hairstyle's been gone for like 25. Like, that's like an Ozfest 2001. Like, you're there to see Cold Chamber and, and like maybe Korn. Like that was some shocking hair. You got to know that one of the most time-honored rules of the UFC is that the guy with the fucked up looking hair always loses. Like Chris Matinho, take notes as well. So that's one right there.
Somewhere Heath Herring is not liking that statement.
All I remember is Brock Lesnar riding him like a bull. Shai Yilan, to get up on the mic, and I understand that things can get lost in translation, but to be like, well, I'm glad to get my first finish in the UFC when it seemed to be a combination of an undisclosed injury, a freak injury, and or just an actual like throwing of the fight. Like, dude, this is an injury-prone octagon. Don't throw anything out patting yourself on the back. Dude, seriously. I think that's all I've got for those tonight.
All right, let's get to the grade. I give it a C+. I think nothing too spectacular, but there was a lot of finishes. So a lot of good performances. I'll go C+.
Every time when we do the previews and I invite people to join us on the recap, I say that we talk about what was good, what was bad, what was surprising, and what was controversial. Tonight, there was a lot surprising and a lot controversial, so I'm giving it a C+ as well, even though none of the individual fights was that exciting. I mean, there's a reason there was no fight of the night, but we got some eye-popping finishes, a rare inverted choke submission, and definitely some stuff to fill up the talk for the next week or two.
I thought Magny versus Rodriguez was pretty exciting, but I'm trying to rush. And I'll tell you why in a second. Hardest question, as always, who is your listener of the night?
Oh, listener of the night? I do like Marcus Mustard just kind of like doing the cannonball into the pool, just jumping in and shouting out all the other regulars and then dropping just a bunch of like interesting 1 and 2 word interjections throughout that let us know what he was thinking about without letting us know exactly what he was thinking about it. It's like he was just giving us little conversation starters. So Marcus Mustard gets mine.
Is he related to like Colonel Mustard from Clue? Is like that's like his,
or like Mean Mr. Mustard from those kids books? I don't know.
I'm gonna give Colonel to my Mustard? Man. I'm gonna say Ben Duffy. I'm gonna say move over, man. I'm saying there's a new Ben in town. Ben Cooley. He crushed it tonight, man. He came in early.
And Ben Cooley's been real engaged on the preview shows as well. Like he jumped in to defend the honor of Eileen Perez versus Tamarez Vidal. So yeah,
there you go. So there you have it, guys. We have covered all the fights. We'll be back this week. We'll be previewing UFC 281. It's one of the most loaded card. Ben will be back next week. I don't know if you have a special guest. I will not be at the recap next week, as I actually will be in Madison Square Garden covering all the stuff. And hopefully you guys check all that stuff out. Ben, I tried wrapping up as soon as I could because it is the 9th inning. Your team is up by 3 runs with 1 out. Go watch the World Series, my man.
I will go and do. I will celebrate. I'll run out into the street, shoot guns into the air. I'm just kidding. I won't. Like,
no, that's any other day in Texas.
At least it's in the air this time. Yeah.
All right, guys. See you next week.